Good morning, good afternoon and good evening to all the people who've logged on from around the world for this EMBA-Global Programme's webinar. We're very happy to have you here. We've got quite a packed agenda to walk through with you, and there'll be time for questions at the end. Let me just introduce the team who's going to be supporting you on this webinar. My name's Linden Selby, and I've been looking after admissions for EMBA-Global for about 10 years, and I'm here with Matthew Foster, who's managing admissions for EMBA-Global as well. And we're both representing London Business School, but today we've got a special VIP guest, and that is Susan Sullivan. And she is our counterpart from Columbia Business School. So just quickly, Susan and Matthew, will you just say hello and introduce yourselves?
Hi, I'm Susan Sullivan from Columbia Business School. I've been working in admissions with the EMBA-Globals for the last 4 years, but prior to that, I did student affairs at Columbia for 20 years, so I'm very familiar with the program.
And I'm Matthew. I've been with the school approaching a year now. Prior to this, I worked in international education on behalf of the UK government, so I'm well versed in cross-national education.
Thank you. Now, let's have a look at what we're going to be talking about. The three of us are going to be giving you a brief presentation, and we're going to be discussing items like the benefits of our partnership. We'll be walking you through the programme content and what you're going to learn. We'll be telling you a little bit about career management in the EMBA-Global world, and we'll be touching on the admissions process and also a little bit of extra help with what we can offer in terms of fees and financial aid. And then we're going to turn it over to you and work our way through some of the questions. If you're asking questions now, we'll keep the answers till the end of the presentation. And of course, any questions that we don't get to in the webinar, we will reply individually. So without further ado, just moving on to the format. So those of you who've been looking at the EMBA-Global programme will know that we've got one stream that is very much focused in the Americas and Europe segment, and one stream that's focused on EMBA-Global Asia, and that is kind of divided by the globe. And if you drew a map and then sort of did a line down the middle, quite the majority of our students who come on the different streams will be located close to or near or have business in the relevant stream. So the similarities, they're all 20 months long. They're all taken part-time, so you can work and study. You can accelerate your career and not interrupt your career. The locations for Americas and Europe, you're taught between London and New York. And for EMBA-Global Asia, you're taught primarily in Hong Kong, London, but with blocks in New York and London, and also a block in Shanghai. The fees are there for you, and we have one intake in May. And I would just say that although we have quite a large geographical split, people come on the programmes very much depending on where their interests are. So for instance, based in London, we have 2 people who were working for consultancies like Accenture, media companies, and they were finding that most of their new business and their clients were actually Asia located. So for them it made perfect sense to go to do the EMBA-Global Asia and build their relationships and network in that region. And similarly, we have people who are based in the Gulf and in the APAC region who are increasingly finding that they're doing business in Europe, they're doing business in the Americas, and again, this program offers a really good way to build their networks, their relationships, where they're doing business and where they expect to do business in the future. Just moving on to the sort of the global feel of the program, the locations are part of it, but later on we'll be talking a little bit about class statistics, and you will see that our students literally do come from everywhere. And they travel and their work takes them to many different countries. Who you learn with is going to be a crucial part of the global equation. So you can expect to be with groups of professionals who live, work and study in many different different cities outside of their birthplace. And they carry that open-minded attitude with them. And that's what makes much of the program so compelling. It's the relationships that you make. And when we see our students come back for their first class weeks, they're already fast family. They're already hugging each other, saying hi, catching up with each other, planning places to go, which bars they're going to go to, which work they're going to do, how they're going to manage. It really does feel like a family reunion at the class block weeks as people fly in from so many different cities. I'm going to move on quickly just to talk about the benefits of our partnership. And here, this is where the reason for EMBA-Global really rests. Because what we wanted to create across London and Columbia Business School was a program that would really give you the best of both worlds. So in practical terms, you will get an MBA degree from both schools. In practical terms, you will develop networks, relationships, connections, knowledge of two incredibly important gateway cities and markets. And you'll interact with amazing people. Susan and I, Matthew, have all worked in admissions now. We know the calibre of EMBA-Globals. We know how exciting they are to be with and to work with. But there's also a piece about wanting our students to be effective in any environment and delivering the very best of an MBA. So if you also think of our partnerships, not just as the institutions and not just as the students, but we also think about the faculty involved and the fact that we are both intensely research-driven learning organisations as well as teaching organisations, you'll see that you're really getting the best of both worlds from Columbia, London, and indeed Hong Kong. So, Susan, I think you were going to say a little bit about faculty, that you're particularly keen on, or, or just sort of thinking a bit about a couple of faculty and research centres.
Sure. Of course, I'm keen on all our faculty, but a few that I wanted to mention. We have a combination at Columbia of literally half our faculty are research faculty, people with PhDs doing cutting-edge research and really expanding the envelope in their disciplines. But the other half of the faculty are not academics. They're people who are working full-time in their careers and bringing real-world, up-to-the-minute knowledge into the classroom. Some of our research faculty are, I would say, Joseph Stiglitz, who is a Nobel Prize-winning economist, worked with the Clinton administration in the US, and Bruce Greenwald, who's sort of a leading guru of value investing theory. They together have a really popular course with our globals that focuses on globalization in the markets. And it's really just mind-expanding to be in the room with these two just amazing thinkers. On the practitioner end, one of our professors is Barry Salzberg, who until recently was the global CEO of Deloitte. So you can imagine the level of real-world information he brings to the classroom, as well as incredible access to practitioners in the consulting world. So those are just some of the examples of the people that you would be in the classroom with. We're very proud of our research centers. Just to name a few, one is the Eugene Lang Center for Entrepreneurship. If you are either, you're currently building a startup, or if you're thinking about that in the future, this is a great place to start bouncing your ideas off professionals who have gone through that path. Whether you're at the level of starting or scaling, or perhaps you're someone who is on the investing side, thinking about how to assess startups to invest in. We have actual, what we call entrepreneurs in residence, who are doing their own startups and scaling their businesses, who will be happy to sit down and one-on-one advise you. There's a whole suite of classes that teach you how to pitch your business plan to VC professionals and how to really get the ventures up and running. Another example is our social enterprise center, the Tamer Center. They are doing just stunning work in terms of sustainability, exposing students to emerging markets and the various challenges of doing business in places like that, that is also having a social impact. Professor Bruce Usher is the head of that, and he does work in Africa in terms of getting fresh water to large populations, but he also just recently, in the last year, worked with 12 students to create a scholarship, particularly for Syrian refugees, raising the funds, raising consciousness on campus, and we're going to be having several Syrian refugees whose careers and education was interrupted by their situation in their home country come to campus and do our MBA program and law program. So there's just a lot of exciting opportunities for students in these centers.
Thank you, Susan. And Matthew, I think, just a little bit about research and faculty.
I mean, our faculty at London Business School is extremely diverse. I mean, it really reflects the global nature of this program and the school as a whole. I mean, we've got over 30 nationalities within the faculty department of the school, with over 86% of our faculty actually being international, which is widely above the industry average. And actually more than a quarter of those are female as well, which is again above the average for leading European business schools. I mean, it's always a statistic we're looking to increase, but we're very proud that we are leading the way there. In terms of research centres, I mean, we have 6 specific research centres based here at the school, and as with Columbia, they're publishing very real-world advice. So we've recently had Richard Jolly publishing some information for the Leadership Institute about the government's new digital strategy. And he's also been highlighting the executive derailment and the issues the executives face with that. I think another specific faculty member I'd like to highlight is Linda Grattan, who's one of our professors at Management Practice. She's the co-author of the influential 100-Year Life book, talking about the longer working lives that people are now experiencing and the need to continue to retrain. And she's actually recently been announced as a part of the Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's new advisory council on reforming social security and education in Japan. So that's a 13-strong council with a countrywide remit. We're very proud that Linda Grattan's actually forming part of that advice system. The school itself has actually maintained a very strong position with its research output. Over half the research output has got the top 4-star rating. So that's the highest rating we can possibly get, and that again puts us at the top of those league tables for research. So it's something that's very much brought to the programme by all of our faculty, and they like to learn from the students as much as they're sharing their knowledge and experience.
Thanks for that, Matthew. And we just spent a little more time on this because a lot of people get very interested in the programme, the course content, but of course the faculty are what drives this. And of course there are lots of differences of perspective as well from the best of the North American and the best of perhaps the European or Anglo-Saxon way of thinking. And those researchers will have input into designing, delivering and teaching courses, and they will showcase their latest research in the elective portfolio. Now, Matthew mentioned the diversity as well, and we just want to touch on this because if you're becoming part of this EMBA-Global family, then you've got touch points right the way across the globe, in the Americas, in London, in the Emirates, and also in Hong Kong. And of course, there's going to be, great alumni clubs around the world, lots of alumni activities. We have our World Alumni Celebrations where everyone gets together and has parties one day a year. Susan, I think you were talking about a similar focus on parties.
Yes, I'm afraid. Not afraid, I'm proud.
Proud of parties.
Are a focus. It's not just the perhaps 2 years you'll be in the program that you're going to be surrounded by just amazing classmates. It's really who you're going to be able to call upon and spend time with for the rest of your life. You have this amazing group of people worldwide who you have this common experience with. I've heard tales over and over of alums perhaps wanting to expand their business in another part of the world, and suddenly they have people they can just reach out to and ask those insider questions. How does this work? What's your advice for making this move? And there's just, as admissions people, I'm going to take a little credit, we really look to bring in people who want to be part of a community, who want to be engaged. So the level of achievement of your alumni network and the level of engagement is really, really strong in the global program.
And very selfishly, when we're out on the road, we feel like we've got friends in every city globally. And I should just say, whether you do EMBA-Global Americas and Europe or EMBA-Global Asia, you're an alumnus of the Global family, and you're also a full alumnus of Columbia Business School and London Business School. I'm going to just touch on the programme content, though we're going to walk through this quite quickly because I'm pretty sure most of you will have read about it on the website. And, you know, a lot of people say, what's the difference between EMBA-Global Americas and Europe and EMBA-Global Asia? And the answer is actually these programs are very, very similar, and the key differences really happen in where you study. So it's very much location driven. I should also say that the same faculty teach the program wherever you are, and they travel backwards and forwards to get to the different schools. So you might be taught by one of the London Business School professors in London. He may then travel on to New York, and he may also deliver a similar course in Hong Kong. So you'll do a combination of core and elective courses, and we'll do a little more of a deconstruct on what that means later on. You'll be taught in residential block weeks. You will, in the elective section, select courses from the portfolios across the partnership schools. It doesn't matter which program you're on, you've got access to everything. And you'll select an international assignment or a seminar from a wide range of destinations offered by both schools. If we think about the teaching methods, yes, of course there's going to be classroom-based lectures, and you're going to really drive into the case study method. You're going to be doing a lot of group work, and you'll be in study groups to facilitate that. And I just want to mention that English is the language of instruction. There'll be projects, there'll be simulations, there'll be takeaway papers, there'll be sit-in exams. We use a variety of teaching models and methods, but at the end of it all, the themes are always that you will understand about subject knowledge, and you will understand a lot more about how things work with different perspectives in different countries. In terms of career support, well, our executive MBA cohort are quite senior, so the support that they need are no longer to find internships, or no longer to, sort of have these big changes that you might see in somebody who's got 2 or 3 years of experience going into an MBA. Our students are very interested in developing themselves professionally to be the best that they can be, and really, how do they improve and develop themselves to make them the best candidates for their future roles, whatever that might be. So there's a lot of focus on services from each school that will help you develop in this area, and we'll touch a little more on that later on. We've already talked about the alumni and the parties and how we're proud of the parties, but just finally, the degree awarded, you will get an MBA from London Business School and Columbia University on the Americas and Europe program, and you will get a joint degree from London Business School, Hong Kong and Columbia University if you do the EMBA-Global Asia. If we just move on to the actual program itself, what we're creating here is a combination. There's a knowledge framework that we create for our students, and both London and Columbia spent a long time working on co-creating this. So all the main core subjects that you study will meet all the pre-course requirements of elective courses. And it basically splits into 3 chunks. There's the skills that you need to know. You need to understand and know about managerial statistics. You need to really understand and know about corporate finance and financial accounting and managerial economics. There's also domain knowledge, where you really need to expand your understanding. And that includes subjects such as the global economic environment, or marketing strategy, or operations management, And of course, strategic management, which is really a very important subject for anyone at an EMBA level, thinking about an EMBA-Global, because most of you will be really well versed in your own areas of expertise, but it's how you step back and start to see the bigger picture, which is where the real learning comes in. And finally, if we look at things like executive leadership and leadership and organizational change, it's about developing an understanding of yourself. So if you think about two parallel streams in this framework, you've got subjects, you've got domain knowledge, you've got skills, and understanding yourself and also understanding the business context. That's going to mean that when you graduate, even before you graduate, you're going to be better at decisions, you're going to see a bigger picture, and you'll have more confidence and a language to present your ideas. Just moving on quickly to the locations, just to reinforce that you do this program across the schools, and the faculty travel. So the professors who are teaching in London may then be flying out to Columbia, and the professors who are teaching in Columbia will be flying into London. So you get continuity in direction. If we think about the actual formats, we talked about core courses and electives. So the core courses are very much that full workload to complete in terms 1 to 3. And this covers all the elements that you need to understand and know. You're going to learn in your cohort. You're going to be lockstep with them all the way, and you're going to learn and develop with your study group. And we set the study groups at the start of the program, and you will be part of that group and learning together on your core courses. Then when we move into the elective portfolio, you can choose from across the partner schools. And how you choose is kind of up to you, but it really is the ultimate in customization. And some people might be looking at locations, some people might be focusing on subject areas, some people might be following a particular professor that they really enjoy. And you'll work from students across the partner schools here. So you're not only getting customized learning, but you're also getting an opportunity to really broaden out your networks. And we have a number of formats here in London where we can do electives. If you're in London, you can do them over a term in different sessions. We have block week formats and we have weekend formats. But I think Susan was going to tell you a little bit about how you do electives, how electives work in Columbia.
Well, similar to what you just described, at Columbia we have different programs that meet in different time formats. So for instance, if you're doing the global program, during the core you'll be doing those block weeks going back and forth between London and New York. But if you live in the New York area and prefer, because it's more convenient, to just do all of your electives at Columbia, that would be fine. You could continue to do it in a block week format if you like, but you could also mix it up a bit. It's very flexible during the electives. So if you wanted to do just Saturday courses or just Friday, Saturday courses and no longer do the block weeks, that's up to you. You get to choose the time format and the location. And as you were saying, you can choose if there's somebody that you want to study with in London or Hong Kong University, you can make those selections too. It's very, very flexible to meet the needs of busy executives.
Thank you, Susan. And the last piece is really around your personal development. And we'll talk a little bit more about that with the career management, but the sort of things that we deliver across both schools, coaching, skills, executive leadership insights, and also supporting you as you're working in a really very collaborative environment. And I have to say, the faculty who teach and the people who are connected from the careers side with EMBA-Global, they love working on this program. And one of our professors from Columbia Business School gave us this little quote, a while ago. And really, he comes every single year, he teaches EMBA-Globals, and he really values the fact that you bring that combination of experience in business and open-mindedness to the program. Because EMBA-Globals have seen a bit of the world. They've got transnational responsibilities. They've got perspectives that go beyond the domestic. And that makes them really such interesting people to have in class. And I'm going to just kind of quickly show you a block week schedule, mainly to kind of make the point that this program is not for the faint-hearted. You are in class right the way through, starting from first thing in the morning to, early evening. We've got a rigorous selection of classes running, and where you see those lunch breaks, there's frequently going to be speaker events, or coaching sessions, or workshops, or briefing sessions. So really, this is a very full-on experience. And talking of full-on experiences, one part of the program that, everybody really says is a real highlight are the trips. So, just touching on one trip that's run out of London Business School, taking people to Cape Town, having our students across the EMBA program streams working intensively with people who are really working at sort of base level micro businesses. We are talking about somebody like a woman with a pair of scissors. How does she build her business? How does she manage to sort of set herself up so she can attract new business, she can build a brand, she can build a reputation? Our students go out and work intensively on micro business projects, and it really is a highlight for them of the experience. And of course, being in South Africa is also a great experience as well. It takes people out of their comfort zone, and you're doing something valuable. Susan, I think you were going to just talk on about one of the Colombia trips.
Sure. I think maybe one of our most popular is the infamous Munich trip, which is always scheduled during Oktoberfest and focuses on experience branding. As you would expect, the students do spend time at Oktoberfest itself, but they're really looking at the marketing of it and how much it is word of mouth and experiential, people-to-people talking about it. And one of our, again, brand marketing gurus, Baron Schmidt, always runs that trip. So any of these, you spend about a week in the location. And another highlight really, like Linden was saying, is that you are with students from across the programs. So you're broadening your network, and people really bond on these trips. So it's a great way to, in a quick amount of time, form some really tight relationships.
You do a lot of work, but I hear that there's always a lot of fun on them as well. Moving on, we talked just a little bit about career management. So this is just to give you like a view of the sort of things that you might be doing with the careers teams at London and Columbia Business School. So we really want to work with you to help you develop your career goals. A lot of people come into Global and they've got their goals set out in their application, but they tend to be reasonably short term. This is about how you kind of set a roadmap for what you want to achieve in the future. The next phase, it's really about all the toolkits that you need to build your brand, to build your narrative, to actually build your network. And as Susan has said, you get that opportunity through the formats of the electives and also through the trips. And then there's the action phase. You may be interviewing either in your own organisation or looking elsewhere. You might be talking about salary negotiation and wanting to understand what you should be negotiating for. What's the right sort of bundle to ask for? What might you give up if you can get them to add something else to that package? And we also spend some time on helping you work with executive search funds. And the idea is that we'll help support your acceleration journey. We'll help you support transitions. We're not expecting big changes, though of course there are always a few, but we're mostly help with transitioning. And we also really have a lot to help with in the enterprise world, because we have executives in residence, we have great enterprise faculty, many of them are sitting on the boards of companies started by EMBA-Globals. So whether you want to transition, accelerate, or set up your own business or develop your own business further, we've got lots of expert help to draw upon. But let's go back to that admissions point, when you've been writing your application form and setting out your goals. I'll just give you a few hints and tips. The students on the program, you will be transnational. You will have that global perspective. You'll be ambitious people, and you'll be fairly tough people too, because you'll have looked at the schedule and it won't have put you off, you'll just have got excited. We expect you to be in employment, and that can be either with an organisation, or if it is your own business, then we expect that to be launched. So we have people on the programme who are running their own ventures, and we have people coming from the largest, multinationals. And we also expect and hope that you'll have those global perspectives. You'll be seeking that bigger picture. And just some quick stats from orientation taken outside London Business School. 109 students across the cohorts, nearly 30% are female. We have an amazing 61 cities represented across the globe, which we just think is just such a great way of looking at the programme. 36 countries are represented. Most people will have 12 years of work experience, and they will come from very diverse professional backgrounds. We have the co-founder of the Tough Mudder, events organisation company. We have architects, we have doctors, we have screenwriters, we have consultants, and we have people in the oil business, upstream and downstream. We have people coming from the media, from advertising, from entertainment. It really is a very mixed group. So I'd say for anyone who hasn't already done this, have a look at those class directories and just imagine sitting down in a class with all these amazing people. And just to kind of touch quickly through the application process, we do an initial review of your application, there is an interview decision, and then there is a final admissions decision. And this is shared across the schools. So Matthew and Susan, do you want to just say a few quick words about being, about that combined way that we approach our recruitment and why we approach our admissions?
Sure. Well, at the beginning of the process, just reading the applications and doing that preliminary review, we sort of split the planet in half. And Columbia manages applications from North, South America, and the Caribbean area and Asia, while London Business School manages applications from the rest of the world. So that's the initial review. But once we get to the point of interviewing and making a decision, it's really a team effort. The schools do a weekly phone call where we talk about the candidates, and we do make the decision on admission together as a team.
And I would also like to highlight that we're very much looking at all aspects of your application. So we are discussing everything you've submitted. It's a very holistic approach, and that's including, we will discuss the interview in depth and the full application. And that's right through all of those stages. So it's not a case of it's one conversation and done. It is an ongoing conversation between the schools about everything we know about you as a person and your goals and what you're really hoping to gain from the programme.
And of course, because we've discussed you in such depth, it's a really exciting day when you arrive on campus, and also when we see you back for electives. And indeed, Susan and I were just walking across the campus and ran into somebody Susan admitted who's here on one of the elective courses. So this is a really nice feeling that when you sort of see people go through their student journey as well. I'm sure that you have all read, looked, maybe even uploaded the application forms and processes. So just to say the application requirements, we need that online application form, we need your recommendations. At least one recommendation must always be from your current manager, someone you work for. We need your essays. They're always, so interesting to read, because that's where you really showcase what you can bring, what you're going to get, and we get a picture of you as an individual. We also need either the GMAT or the Executive Assessment Score, and we're happy to answer questions about this, if you've got them or individually. We need your transcripts at some point. That should be sent in as well, so we can track what your academic background's like. And for those of you who are thinking about company sponsorships, there's a letter that you can upload just to sort of say what your stage your discussions have reached and what the financing is and what the time is agreed. And to help you negotiate and navigate that letter, there is also a business case on the website which is very helpful. It's been helpful to generations of students for pulling together all the information about how to make that case for support. And just moving on now to talk about the financial aid options. People fund it from loans, from sponsorship, and from savings. We don't have scholarships that are offered to the executive EMBA-Global group. You are, after all, earning and learning. But we've got a couple of good loans. There's Prodigy for our international students. On the sponsorship front, the business case is really helpful, and we also have a couple of business development colleagues who are also happy to perhaps help you make that case for support. And the programme is also eligible no matter where you are for US loans, if you are a US national. And those loans, what are they, Susan? Sally May and...
Well, actually, this is beyond my area of expertise.
So the programme is eligible for US loans under the sort of school loan systems, but both schools offer Prodigy, and it doesn't matter where you're based or what your nationality is, that's usually the best option for your financial aid. So your next steps. Some of you will already be, way down this ribbon, but if you're just starting out, the things that we like to do are to have a look at your CV, because that way we can kind of advise as to where, what you should be doing next. We're happy to put you in touch with alumni and students. If we have classes, we'll pop you into one in London or New York or Hong Kong. We'll help you develop your business case if you want to fine-tune it, and we'll also help you prepare for either the executive assessment or GMAT. Certainly in London we have a few master classes going, or even just a bit of advice as to what you need to aim for, how you should approach it. So we're always really happy to help with this. And having finished on that note, just to say, as Matthew said, we have deep holistic discussions around your application. We really like to get to know you. So please don't feel that any questions are silly or that you're busy executives. If we can give you a bit of advice quickly, then that saves you time. So at this point, I'm going to move on to the questions that we've received, and we'll start to work our way through a few of them. And that is here. We have a question on the status of degree award, and what's the difference between EMBA-Global Asia and EMBA-Global Americas and Europe. And that is that with the event, first of all, you can only do a joint degree if 50% of your teaching comes from one school, two schools. So the only way an institution can have a degree awarding power is if they're teaching a minimum of 50% of the programme. So Americas and Europe is an MBA from both schools. EMBA-Global Asia is a joint degree, and you'll see that quite often in joint degree programmes. And the market and the students seem to regard them as both having, pluses and minuses. With EMBA-Global Asia, you've got a joint degree, you've got 3 brands on your transcript, and in some cases those 3 brands can be quite useful. In other scenarios with the EMBA-Global Americas and Europe, to be able to talk about earning a full MBA from both schools is a really important piece. So generally speaking, the fact that you've studied at any of these schools is a good filter. These are good names to have on your transcript. It's part of your personal brand. We don't hear from our students that companies prefer one over the other. We do hear sometimes that the networks and the alumni pools and the learning are the really important things.
Just a short addition to that, in terms of the question of recognised, the status of the jointly conferred and the separate degrees has no bearing on their official recognition. So the degrees are full master's degrees of the accreditation of the 3 schools and their relative jurisdictions, so there isn't a concern about any official recognition when it comes to the jointly awarded status or the 2 separate degrees. They are full master's degrees.
Mm-hmm. And some people have just touched on the difference between EMBA-Global Americas and Europe and EMBA-Global Asia. Again, you've got you have the same faculty teaching you. you have more or less, you have the same subjects running. Your choices of electives are across the 3 schools. In all these areas, the programs are the same. The differences really lie in location and also in the final degree. So in the EMBA-Global Asia program, of course, most of your teaching will take place in Hong Kong, and for Americas and Europe, it is split pretty much straight down the middle between London and Columbia. But of course, for both streams, you can take your electives anywhere. We've had a question about what's included. And yeah, that's a very sensible question and shows a lot of forward thinking. So your accommodations are included for that first 3 terms for your core courses. Even if you live in London or in New York or in Hong Kong, you will be in a hotel, you will be with your class, you will be working together with them, and it really helps develop that depth of bonding and almost like a full-time program experience as you all come together and work together. So typically we might go to a lounge of one of the hotels in the evening and you'll be working simultaneously on a quick chat with the home front, maybe sort of Skyping your family, working on a paper for work and also working on an assignment for the program. So they're pretty good multitaskers. So your accommodations are included in terms 1 to 3, and then in your elective courses you pay for your travel and your accommodation, and in the core you pay for your travel as well. So it's up to you to sort out your flights, but in those first 3 terms we'll pay for the accommodation. And what else is covered? Well, most subsistence is covered. You know, we feed you pretty well. And we also have the students telling us in London that Columbia feed them much better, much more. And of course, you know, we get the other side of that as well.
At Columbia, they say London Business School uses fine china.
Yeah.
Well, it's very elegant at London Business School.
Yeah, well, the classy end. But on the other hand, I've seen that wonderful hall you have with all the different dishes and all the different, you know, great big scope for everyone to mingle. So we've got the fine china, you've got the bigger space. But just getting back to what's covered, we're more than happy to kind of go into a bit more detail about what you might spend on textbooks, what you might spend on materials, what you should budget for and allow for. And that includes things like side trips. We often get people saying, oh, can I see the schedule? I want to book all my travel right now. And our reply is kind of keep it a little bit flexible, because a lot of our students do side trips around the class weeks. And it would be such a shame to miss out on those because you've already kind of committed all your budget for travel. Some people, when they're talking to their companies, the company will also say, oh, if you're going to be in New York, if you're going to be in London, if you're going to be in Hong Kong, perhaps you can see this client, perhaps you can do this, perhaps you can do that. It's an opportunity, and then your travel will get covered by the company budget. So that works out really well. We've had a quick question about what score, the GMAT scores do I need, and I think I'd also talk to the EA there, and that's to say that when people are taking GMATs, the average usually comes in at about 650. If we're talking the executive assignment assessment, which is developed specifically for an executive MBA population, we've been seeing scores that have been clustered on average around 151. But you should never let these tests put you off. We will look at every candidate and we will look at the whole picture, and what we really want is to be sure that you are study ready. And if this gives us a red flag, or alternatively makes us feel, you know, great, there's a lot of security there, then we'll tell you. So treat it as a diagnostic, do your best. And remember that those are averages. We look at the whole picture all the time.
And just on that, I would recommend, if you haven't read about the executive assessment yet, to have a look on our website or on the GMAT website for some information on that assessment. It's something we've developed in conjunction with GMAT and with other leading business schools, specifically for executive programs. It involves significantly less preparation than the GMAT. And there's greater flexibility in the booking of dates and the rebooking of dates, specifically because it's designed to be very much a litmus test of where you are now and looking at the skills that executives use in their day-to-days and need to use. So whereas the GMAT may be seen as tailored towards a more MBA population, more early careers with more heavy maths, the executive assessment is more appropriate, we feel, for executives, and we found in our validity studies that it does show performance accurately on the programme. So it's certainly worth taking a look at, particularly if you are pressed for time.
And just on the subject of tests, you know, people talk a lot about, oh, can I waive this, can I waive that? And to be honest, we'll probably be happy to waive the GMAT, but you will be expected to do the executive assessment. It's important for us that we have a non-subjective benchmarked view of each candidate. We look at the whole picture. And the other thing with the executive assessment is it was specifically developed to be a diagnostic snapshot of the way you are now. Not the way you would be after, say, 3 months or 6 months of intensive study and prep. We're just looking for this snapshot. So if you're thinking you're a bit uncomfortable about GMAT and the amount of prep to take for it, especially if you're an experienced executive with a lot going on in your life, on the home front and the work front, then you know, we can happily say that we won't expect the GMAT, we won't expect GRE, but we will expect the executive assessment. And also, so many people have taken it now across our executive MBA cohorts. They're doing really well, and a lot of them said that it really helped them sharpen up and understand where they had to focus when they got the pre-work, when they were in class. It was just a little bit of a wake-up call. So for us, you know, we're proud to have developed it and been two of the leading players in developing this assessment, and our students have certainly benefited from it because it's been a timely diagnosis of where they need to spend some attention. And we've had another query, and that is about an applicant residing in Asia applying for the Americas and Europe. And the answer is... that yes, we have seen that in our cohorts. We have people who are based in North America and Latin America and Africa and the Gulf and Russia applying to the EMBA-Global Asia. And we have had people in the EMBA-Global Americas and Europe who have been coming from Singapore, from Australia, from Hong Kong itself, and the Philippines. And one of the things that we really like about this is that we're really sort of building this mixed network. The thing that's really difficult about applying for a program that's really far away from your, you know, from the rest of the cohort is that you're going to be exhausted. And you know, that is the truth. And we had a great lawyer a couple of years ago who was working out in Australia, and a lot of his client work was in London, so it made sense for him to be here. And he really got a lot out of the programme, and it really gave him that injection of business knowledge that he really needed. But having said that, he was on his knees. So yes, we're absolutely open to people applying from different regions, but you have to think about the attrition of travel, on your work and on your family. And also on managing your study group as well, because if, you know, one of you's in Moscow and one of you's in France and one of you's in New York and one of you's in Chicago, it's going to be very hard finding that sweet spot to get together on a call or a Skype meeting. So, you know, we're absolutely open to it, but you have to be aware as well that it's going to be quite punishing. I had a question about TOEFL and English tests. Do you want to?
What about TOEFL?
Yeah, just about English tests.
Thank you for bringing that up. Yes, if your education was conducted in a language other than English, we do require one of those English skills tests, either the TOEFL, PTE, or IELTS. We don't have a required minimum score. We just want you to do your best, and we will take a look at that. It's just one data point that goes into our consideration. We'll also be looking at your essays and the level of English skill we see there. And certainly in the interview, we will be assessing your comfort with the English language. But we do like to see that common benchmark of a specific test in order to assess our candidates.
Thank you. And we've had a question about the course being open to candidates with 5 or 6 years experience. So the more numerate amongst you will have worked out quite quickly that if the average is 12, then there's going to be people with more and people with less. And the answer is that if you have the responsibilities and the maturity and the transnational perspectives that will really fit this program, we are always open to it. Every year there are some exceptional people on the program who come in with, less than that 12 years. What we will pay particular attention to in admissions is, should you be doing a full-time MBA? If your graduating goals are very much aligned with a full-time MBA program, then really it's best, this is what you should be doing. If we see responsibility, maturity, global perspectives, a real fast track and a high flyer, then of course we'll look at you, seriously for EMBA-Global. Just looking at the next questions coming in. The typical ROI for our graduates 2 years after completing the program. Well, we use the FT rankings, and the FT rankings are the largest, most rigorous processes of ranking that we can consider. And they take the view that while people are on an executive MBA program, they're often really, really working hard at their studies and also their work life. And then they start to see the real benefits coming in, quantified in financial terms, 2 or 3 years later. And this will enable them and us to judge what the return on investment is. So the FT do this major ranking, and you can go onto the FT website, look at the rankings, look at the average salary percentage increases, and again, this is just the hard cash ROI. We're very proud of the fact that the percentage increase of our EMBA-Globals 3 years out from graduation is significant. But we're also incredibly proud of the aims achieved. And we're really very proud of the number of people who have been empowered to start their own businesses. So it isn't always just about that hard cash, what are you earning, but also about the development you've had, the aims achieved, and critically, would you recommend the program to others? So I'd say anyone kind of looking at, what they can expect might take a look at the FT rankings, and also bear in mind that these vary according to where people are. And global students are incredibly mobile, so the FT ranking also takes into account purchasing parity right across the globe.
I think I'd just add briefly on that with looking at the 2 to 3 years timescale. You do need to bear in mind this is an executive program and it's very much a long-term investment. It's not like maybe an early careers program where you would see very quick progression because people are early in their career and giving them that short, sharp boost. This is a long-term investment in your future, and you may not necessarily see the immediate returns in those 2 to 3 years. It could be 5 years, 10 years as you've developed as an individual and applied the learning and really pulled on those networks. So it is important to look at it beyond the immediate.
And we've just had a quick question about the interview process. And we would say that this can be, we prefer you to be in person. If you're going to be doing a taught master's degree in person, we kind of like you to come to London or to New York or to our Dubai campus or to Hong Kong. We like to see you, but it can equally be by telephone or Skype. But generally speaking, you want to make the most of this opportunity, and you really do want to present, your best effort and to enable us to get to know you. And coming along in person is one of the best ways of doing it. And a practical question on the fees, they're on the website. But just to sort of say that for both the programs, you don't have to put the entire amount down in one go. You can pay if you're self-funded, or if you're proportionally self-funded, you can pay in installments across the terms. So don't let those figures put you off. We're wrapping up now because we're reaching just about the end of our time. So I'm going to say thank you to everyone for some great questions. We'll be coming back to you with a follow-up email. We'll just remind you there about the facts, like the deadlines, like the fees, and any other information that we haven't got to right now. So I'm signing off, and
thank you for tuning in. This is Susan Sullivan at Columbia. Thank you.
And Matthew.
And thank you for joining us today. Feel free to reach out with any more specific questions